right, next on Three Guys and a Trek, we're doing episode 3, Code of Honor. So I'm Matt. I've never seen The Next Generation before. We also have Dennis, who has seen The Next Generation.
Hello.
How many times?
Oh, gosh. More times than I can count.
Yeah, lots of times, and in general, liked it. And then we have Mike, who saw it a while ago, and meh.
I'm a fan, but yeah, I don't know that I would say that I've watched it multiple times.
Yeah. All right. Well, this episode, the synopsis: when the leader of an alien culture takes a romantic interest in Lieutenant Yar, he claims her for his own, to the dismay of his own wife, who, in turn, challenges Tasha in a fight to the death.
Surrounded by lightsabers.
Surrounded by lightsabers. Which the first thing it reminded me of were games of professional tag. Have you ever seen videos
I
of that?
have seen professional tag.
As soon as I saw her going up and like, oh, wow.
It was a very
Before its
poorly
time.
played game of professional tag.
Very poor.
Very poorly.
With, I don't know what those weapons were.
I've never
Like,
seen anybody in the audience die during professional tag, though.
That's true. A mace,
That's true.
a mace attached to the hand, I guess, with a hook on it. It was a very ornate weapon for
Right.
what they were trying to get done.
Well, they brought in 4 boxes to Lieutenant Yar, and these are your weapons. And when she looked at one, I thought, okay, she's obviously going to pick a different weapon than that thing.
Well, I thought they said pick your size.
It was the size?
I think
okay,
that's-
thought they said weapons.
size.
Okay,
I think
that
I
makes
think
more
they
sense.
said pick your size. Yeah, because
Okay.
they said after watching it through it again, because I remember thinking, well, maybe it's a pair of them because they, like you said, they brought 4 boxes.
Yeah. That makes more sense.
But yeah, no, I think it was the size. So
So what did you think overall?
I'm gonna stick to this. Mike called me out on it a second ago before we got here. When I watched this, I considered this to be the first real Star Trek: The Next Generation episode that we've seen so far. The reason I say that, and there's a lot wrong with this episode. The cast across the board hated this episode.
Really?
From it, complaints of the director being racist to accounts of sexism, racism, just as part of the script. Just hated it completely. Jonathan Frakes, Wil Riker, he actually made a push for this never to be shown on the air again after its first airing. He hated this episode.
Well, I didn't get that much out of it.
It was clumsy.
Yeah.
For sure.
To me, like I said, this is the first Star Trek: The Next Generation episode that we've seen where all of your major pieces are in place. At least the place where they're going to be for the next season, maybe 2 seasons. You've got the captain taking command, everybody following his orders, not being the gruff kind of rough around the edges captain, the captain who he's kind of the father figure to the ship. You've got the counselor positioned firmly as almost a conscience to the captain. You've got first officer Wil Riker, who's in a position able to basically command the ship in the captain's absence or command any other mission in the captain's absence. You've got LaForge and Data, who become best friends throughout the rest of the series. And you start to see kind of that budding relationship. You've got Dr. Crusher making... She kind of shined a little bit in the last episode with coming up with the antidote or the cure for the disease they had in the Naked Now. But again, she's showing off her medical chops. And then you've got Crusher, Wesley Crusher, who he's finally got a seat on the bridge. He's, becoming part of the crew. Like I said, this is, to me, it's the crew is finally gelling together, and they're acting like they will for the foreseeable future. Their parts have been, I guess, filled. Their roles are in place, and they're acting them out. The one missing piece was Worf, who wasn't in this episode at all.
Yeah,
Wasn't even mentioned.
Nope.
I was going to bring that up.
Yep. And looking it up, this is one of 2 episodes in the series where
whole
he's
series,
in the whole
it's just one of
series.
2.
One of
Okay.
2 where he's not in it at all. So, but like I said, to me, I enjoyed it. It was a fun episode. Like I said, there were some missteps. The musical cues are still
Front and center.
they're still
Yes.
they're still crazy.
Heavy-handed.
They're very in your face, in your ear. But all in all, I mean, you get kind of touches on Prime Directive. You get bits of humor, bits of relationship building between different characters interacting that may not have interacted before. It was a fun episode. I enjoyed it.
What'd you say your wife thought of when she watched it recently?
So we get to the end of the episode, and my wife said that was just a terrible episode. And my first thought was, maybe it's the reasons that all of the actors had for it. It was racist, it was sexist, but no, her main issue is that it was just cheesy. It was just the I don't know. It was very overly cheesy, and she was not impressed. So
Which is interesting because for me, I feel like this is the least cheesy of the 3 we've seen so far, with the exception of the fight scene,
okay,
which we can talk about later because that was a whole level of cheese unto itself. But up until that point, it was not nearly. I didn't feel like it was nearly as over the top and cheesy as the other ones. It felt like, kind of play on what you said, it kind of felt like the setup from one of the original series episodes.
Sure.
Where they were dealing with this new world, and that's one of the things I was talking with somebody at work, where sci-fi has that ability to push the things that they're I don't know how to say it, the issues that they have with whatever's going on in society. Sci-fi has the luxury of just being able to poof, here's a new planet, they have this problem, let's see how it's dealt with.
right.
And that's kind of what they did here. I definitely felt the sexism part quite a bit. The racism, I don't know. I may have missed it a little bit, but the sexism was definitely there. I mean, even the people on the Enterprise, when Data and Geordi were examining the weapons, they were lightweight, like they were made for a woman.
Right.
It's like, really? Okay.
Right.
Your security officer is a woman. She doesn't seem to me like the type that needs a light weapon.
No, not at all.
But yeah, I mean, the sexism was definitely there, but it was.
This episode, one of the main writers on this episode was, in fact, a woman.
Was it really?
Yep. She's going to write some more episodes, including Deep Space Nine, too, but
Well, there you go.
what was it? Her name was Catherine Powers.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
She also wrote some Stargate episodes. Ooh, some Airwolf episodes.
Oh, wow, that's going way back.
Charlie's Angels.
Okay.
So she was prolific. Dukes of Hazzard.
Nothing sexist there.
Or racist.
And Wonder Woman. Quite, very prolific. So we can talk about that a little more. There was more than one writer. So maybe
Right.
the other writer was Michael Barron. And this was, I think, the only episode he wrote.
I want to say that he got fired halfway through.
Okay.
I want to say that they let him go. So, Matt, what did you think? This was, again, third episode.
First time you've seen it.
3 episodes in now. You've seen them at their most serious. You've seen them at their most silly. And now this is kind of somewhere in the middle. We're still getting used to the crew.
Right. I don't think I liked it as much as the pilot.
Okay.
And I think partly because it was so Yar focused, there's something.
She's not your favorite.
She's not my favorite.
Yeah. I wondered about that.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
she's just not the best
the
actor.
headband-
She doesn't fill that role in.
The headband don't help.
She takes a back seat in the next couple episodes.
Yeah.
So these first two, were very Yar heavy.
Yeah,
so.
they try to give her some
I guess they
playful stuff to do, but she swings those lines like a, I don't know, like a bass, like a bass. that
Like
just
a
gone,
bass.
I don't even know what. It just, I mean, that's how they
You're
landed,
swinging
just like a wet fish.
Wow.
Man. It was just,
Wow,
It was
man.
bad.
There you go.
I just did not enjoy it. I did like the fact that they actually talked about Aikido.
Mhm.
Like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The form of martial art.
Sure.
That, because I think I recognize part of it. I think it's also that's what Steven Seagal
Oh, is it?
specializes in too.
Okay.
Right.
Or at least pretends to specialize in.
He's
I think
supposedly
he's
pretty good.
supposedly pretty good. So
I won't pick a fight with him.
Aikido seems to be there's a book series I read, the Dresden Files, and the tough girl archetype in that, a cop, also is a master of Aikido. It
Yeah.
seems to be like the martial art of choice for, I guess, partly because it allows you to take the strength and weight of your opponent and use
and
it
switch
against
it
them.
around.
And
Yeah.
so that it would make some sense.
Right.
So
And she made pretty good use of it. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, the couple times that she did it, it was very overly done. She tossed the guys on the floor, whether it was the hologram or the guard. But either way, it was overly acted. But she made use of it. She
I wonder if the actress Denise Crosby, right?
Yeah.
I wonder
Yeah.
if she actually knows, or if
I don't know.
I'll have to look that up.
After this, she's been in other things, but it's never anything that I would have, I guess, paid any attention to.
Mhm.
She's not moving on from here. Prolific, at least in my world, my circle of what did I enjoy watching.
Right.
Now, it is interesting that you brought up comparing this one to the pilot. Because, you said when your wife got to the end of the episode, she talked about how horrible it was. I got to the end of the episode and I thought, that almost followed the exact same formula as the pilot.
Okay.
The story was, don't get me wrong, it wasn't 100% serious, but it wasn't too far-fetched cheesy either.
Right.
And they were going in doing like what you said, what you think of Jean-Luc Picard, because the archetype that he's been thrust into over the years is he's the one that likes to think and talk out the problems, where Kirk is the one that likes to shoot first and maybe ask questions if anybody's left. And they kind of did the same thing here. Something happened. He goes in, he's talking to him, and then at the end, something overly cheesy happened. But there's a good, almost like the moral message at the end of it.
Yeah.
Because at the first one, it was they didn't understand what the creature was that they had trapped, and the whole thing was that as the race of humans, there's no way they would understand, so they're just going to try to attack it and kill it, and they ended up helping it get out. In this one, at the end of the episode, they managed to save the woman that they were fighting to the death, or that Yar was fighting to the death. The guy who was the mostly bad guy, I guess you would say, that wanted to be the ruler and be free of his wife, he had everything stripped from him.
He lost 100%, didn't he?
He lost everything. And it wasn't like he lost everything and then was just set free to want. Nope. He became her number 2 husband. So now he is the servant to the first husband. Yeah. I mean, he got beat up pretty hard. And it was that moral message of, trying to do what's right, with everybody around you. Not, it followed the same formula as the first episode, I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned how the cast seemed to be gelling a little bit more,
Mhm.
and there were some good moments in it. Like Troy seemed to be at Picard's side all the time, and I don't know if that's where she's going to be for the rest of the series. Just she sort of played a
Jiminy
more
Cricket.
Jiminy Cricket, yeah.
Yeah.
But also sort of a Spock like role too in some of the things she was saying.
Yeah.
That's not.
I don't know if it was just this episode. Or...
Probably she kind of came off as colder, I think, in
Mhm.
this episode than she normally does and normally will. She really warms up quite a bit. She, Picard made the comment, I'm surprised to hear that you agree to this battle to the death, and she was, well, sometimes things just have to be done. It's all.
And
It's a little
she
cold
didn't mention,
for Troy.
She didn't mention
Right.
anything about feelings either.
Right. She didn't mention any of the
So she
empathic.
didn't-
Everything it seemed like that she was going off of was from previous research into this
Mhm.
into this alien culture, not anything that she was picking up from her empathic abilities. But the first two episodes played heavy into that. She
Mhm.
was picking up an overwhelming amount of empathic signal from the alien on the first episode, and the whole pain. I feel overwhelming pain.
Mhm.
And then the second episode, she kind of her empathic wires got scrambled by what everybody else was feeling on the ship. When they were
Right.
seriously drunk. So this one they kind of, I guess, they dialed that back a little bit. But either way, that she's Picard's I guess emotional compass. Whereas Spock looks at everything logically, completely emotionless. Typically, Troy will kind of inject more emotion, more emotional subtext.
Mhm.
So they're communicating with bad guy X, and they're on the they're getting ready to fight. She might be able to say, yeah, but he's a little nervous about it, or he's feeling overconfident, or he's and kind of slipping in a little bit about what that bad guy may be feeling behind whatever veneer he's putting up. And so, like I said, that'll change a little bit in that regard, but really that's her spot. She's on Captain Picard's shoulder constantly,
Okay.
just kind of feeding him that info.
Mhm.
She mentioned during the she mentioned while they were on the planet, I'm your counselor. If you need to talk, if you need advice, that's what I'm here for. And they play up that a lot moving on in the series. She's the ship's counselor. She has patience. She has people coming to her on a regular
okay.
basis, and so
Okay.
she is the
That's
ship's
how-
psychiatrist.
That's how I remember
Okay.
her.
So they'll get more into that. But this,
Mhm.
they said they're still settling on some things.
Yeah.
They did set up in the first episode though that she does have the ability to shut that off
Mhm.
whenever she wants.
Yeah.
Because that's how she dealt with the overwhelming emotions she felt. Was she just shut it off so she could do her job.
Right.
So
There's one line that I thought kind of odd, where Troy calls Riker Commander, and then Riker goes, Commander, a bit formal, isn't it? Like, isn't that your rank? What else has she called you?
Well,
like this.
she called him Bill.
She called him Bill.
for the first episode, but like in day-to-day regular interactions,
Right.
like the official capacity,
I think that
is that formal?
I noticed that.
Isn't
I
that
noticed that too. I mean, that really stood out to me. There was a lot about that scene that stood out to me, but that stood out to me. Like what you said a minute ago about them building on each other's relationships.
Mhm.
That's almost another layer on top of those two, the relationship that those two share. Something has happened in the past that when she usually talks to him, it's not formal.
Mhm.
And so when she does it, it catches him off guard.
Yeah, they definitely have a past, an intimate past, and
Yeah, and I understood that, but
And-
I would think they would,
Yeah.
like, when they're on the bridge and they're on duty, what else is she gonna? Like-
I imagine she's calling him Will or Riker or
Whatever their
William
relationship
or
was in the past,
Yeah.
she
Imzadi
calls
or-
him whatever she
Mhm.
wants to call him. It's what it seems like.
Okay,
So,
because I mean, like at the end of the episode, Picard goes number one to him.
Right.
mhm.
It's like, well, that's a bit formal.
Right.
Or what do I mean? What is that?
Well,
Yeah.
but then again,
It's
number one is number one to me is less formal than Commander.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
it's implying his rank, but at the same time, it's a familiar term. You know, it's not something that he wouldn't call. I don't even know who it would be at this point. Typically, as you get farther on, Data would be considered, I guess, the second, and second down from Riker. So it would go Picard, Riker, and then Data. So technically, Data could be number 2. I mean, but you wouldn't. That's never implied. Mm-hmm. And when they talk to, I don't know, when they talk to different people, I'm trying to picture now that you've got us thinking about it. I hear Commander LaForge a lot. I hear Commander Data. You hear very rarely is the doctor called Beverly. She's called Dr. Crusher. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, people are called by their rank. So there may be something to that. But like I said, like Mike said,
it's always Captain to Picard.
Oh, absolutely. Well, to an extent.
For the most part.
The only one that gets away with that is Dr. Crusher.
Dr. Crusher will call him Jean-Luc a lot.
Yeah.
But like even in front of other people and
there's a familiarity between Troy and Riker that, like I said, it'll play up throughout the entire series.
And Troy seems to hold a special power anyway with her position, because when she was on the planet, when anybody wants to talk to Picard, it's always Captain or Sir. She just leans in and speaks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She never identifies him by name or rank. She just starts talking. Yeah. And he just looks at her and nods. And
right.
Almost like she's, I don't know why this analogy popped in my head, but almost like she's the parrot literally sitting on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. On any pirate ship, the parrot can say some of the most asinine things and he's fine, but if one of the crew people said the exact same thing or addressed the captain the exact same way, he'd get shot.
Yep.
But the parrot, the conscience, the little bird on the shoulder, it can get away with, it has that access to the captain.
So to go back to that scene we were talking about where she calls him Commander and he says that's a bit formal. And she says that's because it's a very formal request. Mm-hmm. And then she begins to say, that she wants Picard to lead the away team. Did anybody else notice the way Picard snapped his head around and gave Riker kind of a funny look? Did you notice a look on his face?
No.
I mean, because he just kind of turned around like, what are you going to say? He just had this look on his face like, go ahead, argue with her. And then everybody else started talking to Picard was just staring Riker right in the eyes like, what are you going to say? Because that was one of their first conversations is that, no, I'm not going to allow you to go on an away mission.
Yeah.
You're too important. And now this is coming and he's like, go ahead, argue with them. And
I did notice, at the end of the conversation when he said, Riker says, that's fine. But if you get hurt, sir, I'm going to put you on report. You know what
yeah.
And he said it with a smile. He had kind of a smirk to him. So there was that. You did catch that there was a little bit of playfulness, I guess, going back and forth in the conversation. But I didn't notice the Picard side of it. Like I said, I noticed the Riker side of it at the end.
As soon as she said it, and the camera turned to be looking over Riker's shoulder at her as she said it. As soon as she said it, I mean, his whole body just snapped around and stared at her. It was like, wow, okay.
No, I missed that completely.
It just stood out to me. I actually went back and watched it a second time because I thought it was funny. Yeah.
So, all right. So, did anybody? One of the things that popped out to me, and I pointed it out to Andrea when we were watching it earlier today, as just an odd thing for them to either do on purpose or to make a mistake. Either way, if they purposely did this, it was a weird thing to do on purpose. And if they did this by accident, it's an even weirder thing to do by accident. So, so they've got the Leegin people in the meeting room, all right, and then they're sitting down at a table. And they've got all the guards lined up behind them, and Picard brings out this little horse, right? And he sits it in front of them, and he says, your people remind us of a powerful empire from Earth's past. Mm-hmm. And then he gives him this horse, and he says, this is from this Chinese dynasty. I'm trying to figure out if they purposely gave him something from a dynasty or from an empire that's obviously not the empire that the Leegins remind him of. Because obviously the Leegins remind him of some African empire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right? It's got to be this strong African heritage. You know, it just comes out of everything that these Leegins are. Why give them something from China's history? You know, I can't figure out, you know, did they do that on purpose? Did they purposely say, you know, you remind us of this powerful empire, and I'm going to give you this Chinese artifact because it's the Chinese that you remind us of? And they played to that, and they said, we're not going to go with the obvious and say, you know, you guys remind us of this African empire? Or did they do it by accident? Did they just not even think about it and think, well, we're just going to give you something from Earth's past that has no tie at all to the fact that I just said you remind us of this ancient empire. Now take this artifact that has no tie whatsoever to that empire. I can't figure out what direction they were trying to go with that. I really feel like it would have made more sense to give them something, you know, from some African tribe. You know, so and you know, present that as
something made out of vibranium.
Absolutely, a Black Panther helmet. You know, the gorilla costume. You know, the M'Baku. You know, I mean, give him
something like what Killmonger stole.
Absolutely,
something like that. Yeah.
But it just seemed so out of place for him to take this Chinese artifact and give it to this obviously Africanized tribesman. I don't get it.
I don't know. I didn't pull that out of it.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly took it as he was comparing them to what was it, the Ming Dynasty? He said to that,
and he got the century wrong.
He did get the century
wrong, which is
wrong.
another odd thing in that scene.
And I thought that's where you were going, really. So I'm kind of I've got nothing for that.
Gotcha.
So not only
I really
if you're right, not only did they choose a completely wrong empire, but they had Picard say the wrong century of it, just so Data could correct. So yeah, it's even weirder and weirder.
It's just a weird scene, man.
Because that was one thing I was going to talk about. They had Data correct Picard in front of the leader of another empire. Yeah. I mean, it was just.
And they go out of their way in future series. Picard is an archaeology buff as you get farther into the series.
Right.
That is not a mistake that Picard would have made. You know, two seasons from now.
No.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's just an odd thing, man.
It was weird because I was trying to think. I didn't really think twice about it because I thought, I guess they're going for a Chinese type culture, because at that point you only saw how they entered in their dress and some mannerisms, and so I guess you're just supposed to paste that onto whatever they're doing.
Right.
But then when you get to their planet, that is not. It's not even close to what.
No, it's not a.
No, yeah, and I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. That's not.
But see, that I didn't take it as they were trying to compare them directly, apples to apples. What's going on in your empire is exactly what happened in this Chinese empire.
Right.
I took it as the scope and power of your empire mirrors the scope and power of this empire,
and that could be like,
or maybe some of the honor traditions.
I took it as a broader paintbrush.
Gotcha.
I guess,
and that could be, and apparently the original screenplay didn't call for the Leegins to be any certain race.
They just made them all black.
The director and
like
I said, the director that brought them in, the main director on this one got fired. He's the one who he went out and he hired all black actors, and he, so it was a conscious decision by the director, not necessarily the scriptwriter or the screenwriter. So if they had been all blue with antenna, it wouldn't have caught me off guard that they're giving him a Chinese relic.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the fact that they're all obviously, they're all black, they're all, and some of them even have, like a South African accent, or an African accent when they talk.
Right.
It's just such a callback to and African, however you want to say it, tribesmen or Zulu warrior or one of these, African empires, that to then give them a Chinese artifact was just, it just seemed just off, man. I've got no other word for it other than just off.
Yeah, I mean, the more you talk about it, the weirder it does seem.
So
now that I'm thinking through it, so there's two directors, Russ Mayberry and Les Landau, the latter which is uncredited. So I guess that's the guy who got fired halfway through.
So you're saying the director got fired halfway through this episode?
Well, no, the uncredited one went on to direct more stuff. Russ Mayberry. Yeah, he didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, here we go. Director Russ Mayberry was fired by producer Gene Roddenberry before filming was complete. Assistant director Les Landau finished directing the episode uncredited. So yeah, he was fired. Gene Roddenberry came in and fired him during filming, and you are out. And I said, and it's one of those things where
there had to have been something going on off camera that we don't know about.
Absolutely.
Because I don't see this episode as being
any
as bad or any worse than any other episode.
Maybe to put it in the most charitable light.
Yeah.
Like the casting of it. It's since there are discussions of the Prime Directive, and that's a big theme about the whole thing. It's like, well, if it wasn't for the Prime Directive, we could level the whole planet type of thing with our firepower, essentially.
Yeah.
And maybe he was trying to make some kind of allegory of powerful British Empire versus African colonists, and maybe that's what he was trying to make a connection toward.
Yeah.
It's a stretch.
So according to Wil Wheaton, the cast in general were unhappy doing the episode. Wheaton claims that he heard the director, Russ Mayberry, acting in a racist manner toward the African American actors. So, like Mike said, something off screen.
There was something else going on because that episode's not
exactly the episode itself. It could have been. They said if they had been completely blue with antenna, or if they had been little green men, there wouldn't have been any thought to it. But the fact that it's African American actors dressed up in tribal garb, whether it's legitimate African garb, or it's a Chinese, or it's whatever the heritage of that garb may be, they're definitely dressed up in I guess a pre-warp society. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely a tribal garb that they're wearing. And then you make them this sexist, this power hungry. You and the way that you turn it, it was just even if the context wasn't there when it was airing, and even if context wasn't there when it was scripted, it's hard not to look back at it now and go, "Hey, wait a minute." Did you do that on purpose? It looks like somebody did that on purpose. Because
but the really
that's rough.
The really overtly sexist and power hungry thing, that was just one guy.
It was absolutely,
because the only other one of them that speaks is the one at the end who gets the new wife.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the whole power hungry thing just seemed to be the one guy because
Luton.
Yeah, Luton.
Well, they were talking about that it was their whole culture, and we'll get into that a little bit. Sort of the tension between, because Troy, even in that conference room in the first meeting, he was like, "Well, what'd she say? Such it used to be on Earth," and then she sort of looks embarrassed, and then, which I'm thinking, okay, you're supposed to respect all cultures, right?
But not your own.
But not your own. You're supposed to respect all cultures, but be embarrassed about those same things in that culture you're supposed to respect that's in your own. Right? So there's that that tension which I assume is going to continue throughout some of the series, maybe because this episode was a little heavy-handed with some of its.
Oh yeah,
some
absolutely.
of its messaging, especially Picard's speech after Troy says, "You're the captain, you're entitled."
Right.
And he says, "I'm not entitled to ramble about something everyone knows." Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little heavy-handed in some of that respect because if you're really gonna go for this respect all cultures, multiculturalism idea, you got to do it.
Right.
You can't
right.
You can't just.
You can't only respect some cultures. You got to be able to respect all cultures,
All of them.
including your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just the whole thing about being the overtly sexist and power hungry one. It still just strikes me that that's just the one guy.
Yeah.
Because the only other one that speaks, now, that is their society. The women own everything, but they have no power in society.
Right.
They just own everything.
And it seemed like she had a lot of power at the end, though.
It really
it
did.
was like a.
She
It
swung.
was like it was a completely different.
She swung a big stick at the end.
The reason that happened, though, is it's a line that was almost a throwaway. You almost didn't catch it. But he comes in and he says, "You're not dead." Right. So she died. Air quotes.
Didn't know Federation medical technology could resurrect the dead.
Right.
Either
way, she says her line was something to the effect of, "Death voids the contract." So basically, they're not married anymore,
right?
Because she died.
Right.
And that's what gave her.
That.
That's what gave her the power to. It's like at this point, we're no longer married, because then he says you would end a marriage like that, and she throws it back in her face. You were going to have this other woman kill me to end a marriage.
Yeah.
Yes, I died. The marriage is over. That's how it ends. And now she's back in the position of she has no husband. She has all this land. She has all this wealth. She can't do anything with it. She owns it.
But she can choose a husband. That's the power she has.
Exactly. So
and the only reason I say that the power hungry part and the sexist part is just on him is because you look at the other guy. He seemed to genuinely care for her on some level.
More so than her husband did.
Definitely more so, because he stood up and called out her name during the fight when it looked like she was about to lose.
Yeah.
And then when it was over and he had his hands on her shoulder at the end of it, he reached up and was stroking her hair. I mean, he was showing what appeared to be genuine affection towards her.
Right.
And the other guy was the one that was focused on, I just have to get this land away from her. She's useless to me. I need her dead and gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, whatever social connotation you want to put on this, I find it hard to saddle an entire society with the actions of one individual.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, for all we know, though, everybody sitting there could have been just like him. The guy that ended up with a woman could have been the oddball.
Yeah.
So I'm not ruling that out at all.
They all sat there and watched the fight, man. They all had their little sticks.
The only time they stopped clapping those sticks was when the guy died.
Yep.
And as soon as somebody got and hauled him off, they started going again. Here we go.
Yeah. Split-second lethal. That's what they call that poison.
It took just long enough for that poison to kill him for somebody to sit down next to him so he could turn slightly and fall in their lap.
Yep.
You could see the blood on his stomach. That's all it took.
That's all it took.
Now, did anybody else notice? This caught me the first time I went back and watched it. The line was, it's a fight to the death. There's no stopping the match until somebody dies. And the very next line was something to the effect of, "Stop the match, stay where you are, get her weapon back."
Right.
It's like, wait a minute. I thought we weren't stopping the match until somebody died. Why are you stopping the match the very first time you get a chance?
That was odd. Like, why would he? I don't know. Maybe he wanted it to be the semblance of a fair fight, so everything was proper.
I don't know.
So it was odd that they stopped it then.
Yeah. What did everybody think about? So Data, his continuing effort to be human. Humor's going to play a big role for Data coming up.
It always does.
That was probably the best part of the episode for me.
Oh,
when
yeah.
he's telling the joke and he's just like in the most threatening manner possible. He just keeps
Standing
in.
tall and leaning in.
You didn't
It's
tell
like
it
he's
very
threatening him.
well. Yeah.
You will laugh.
That like I said, it comes up. It comes up a lot, first and second season, with Data trying to learn how to tell jokes. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get the humor in it, and you kind of realize why real early on. He doesn't get the timing. He doesn't realize why something's funny. It's kind of like my daughter. You know, my daughter tries to make up jokes. She wants so badly to make up a joke, and she'll say something that's funny, but she doesn't know why it's funny. So she tries to repeat it. And tries to repeat variations of it. You know, if it's just a funny word, she tries variations of that word. You know, and she just doesn't get it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that it's Data's the same thing. And like I said, they'll as the first season comes, I think it may just be the first season, but maybe the first and second. He gets into humor. As it goes on, he gets more into music and art and other ways to try to, you know. Be more human and kind of an emotional outlet for an emotionless being, you know.
Yeah, humor's hard for even normal people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Being a comedian's not even.
It's not easy.
Comic writer is one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah.
But his two funniest lines were both times where he was not telling a joke.
Right.
You know, where he and again, this is another thing that's really weird because he's supposed to be an emotionless being. But the thing he said that made Geordi laugh, that was him popping off from frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So this guy who doesn't have any emotions and is very robotic and is very, well, I mean, he is a robot. He just popped off because he got frustrated, and that made Geordi laugh. Mm-hmm. And then when they were talking about the tracing the source of the beam technology, and he starts going into explicit detail about what's going on, and then he turns around so he can see him while he's talking to him, and they're all just staring at him. He's like, yeah, that's not important. It turns back around.
Yeah. He's kind of the straight man and the comedian to his own jokes. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, the actor's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
and you say it's funny you say the actor because Brent Spiner was great throughout. You know, he only got better.
Like from the very beginning, he's been great.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
But I tell you, I think who I think feels the most comfortable on the screen is LeVar Burton. You know, Geordi.
Yeah,
he just seems every line he reads, everything he says, no matter how ridiculous it is,
he just does it.
And he just comes off comfortable. He seems very relaxed with what he's saying. He to me. On this episode in particular, he kind of shined as, even if he didn't have a lot to say, he was the most competent up there. Some of the others seem to, whether or not they struggled with delivery or they struggled with timing or whatever, just fumbling with the words, because some of the words, some of the techno babble is what they call it off screen. Can get tricky anyway. So
well, he did pull off a scene where he was completely clean shaven, but he was shaving.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I've not seen acting like that since the last.
And he was doing the whole rub his face and everything while he was doing it. I mean, it was fantastic. I'm like, this guy shaved like 20 minutes ago. What's he doing?
I like the blue razor. That was pretty cool. Very futuristic. It was still obviously something sharp. Wasn't like he was shaving with a laser beam.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't optimally programmed for shaving.
Optimally.
Because it's an art form.
Hey, no, I don't buy that. To me, take it all
what he
out.
said.
I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to shave. It's the art form or no. Take it all.
Yeah.
So.
Have you ever had a straight razor shave, like a
Mm-hmm.
barbershop?
Yeah.
I haven't yet, but
It's a whole new experience.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Takes some humility to let another man put a knife to your throat,
mm-hmm.
and I've heard it's great.
It's a close shave. They do it well. It's a close shave. It's nice.
Yep. I've had it done twice, and I wasn't cut either time. So.
Yeah. I mean, I like the hot towel. The hot towel alone.
Hot, yeah.
I'd fall asleep. So I know a lot of people do fall asleep when they're getting out of shape, which is funny.
I've never been that comfortable yet.
Right.
I don't fall asleep when another man's putting a razor blade to my throat.
You just don't trust your barber enough, Mike. That's what it is.
Dennis, I don't trust you enough.
Do we ever see any traditional barbers?
Yep.
In the Star Trek?
There is.
Oh, yeah.
There is a
On the ship.
barber.
There's one on there.
His name is Mott.
Mott.
Mm-hmm.
His name is
Okay.
Mott. He won't be regular. He'll be a recurring, kind of like, Chief O'Brien. He'll have a wife coming down the line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She'll show up. She'll be, I guess, what you would call a recurring character. She may show up 2-3 episodes in a season, and you may have Mott do something similar. He's definitely on the ship. They refer to him, but yeah, he's the barber. He's
Okay.
the guy.
We're talking about the ancient civilizations and everything. How great was the interaction between Data and Picard about the archaic dead French language?
French, an obscure language from
An
several
obscure
centuries
dead
ago.
language,
I
That
wanted
was
to bring
fantastic.
that up too.
Yeah.
And it brings up that no matter, because this is supposed to be utopian, ideal
Mhm.
future society, right? And they've left their national identities behind for the
Right.
greater good.
Right.
But no, I mean,
Yeah.
I like how it is. At least they're trying to be realistic here. People are not going to give up their individual identities. They're not going to stop taking pride in where they came from,
Right.
and what they stood for.
Every one of the people on those ship knows where they came from, and they have their pride.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even in the city of Louisville, Dennis grew up in one section of town. He likes that section of town. I grew up in another section of town. I like that section of town. It's the same city.
Yeah,
We're the same distance away from any particular restaurant we want to go to.
Absolutely.
But you just have that pride in that neighborhood, and that's kind of what that was. And,
right.
Riker just kind of stepped in. Data, you should drop it.
Yeah.
But he's the only one. Well, you get it later. He's the only one that you know any background of.
Mhm.
Well,
He's brought it up now.
Yar brought
twice.
up part of her
Yar brought up
background
part of
because she grew
hers.
up in the
On a-
she
But
grew
it's
up
a
in
different planet.
she grew up on a planet where the courts, like the one that they were in at the time,
Right.
where those were a real thing, and she
Right.
had to deal with it.
I guess I was thinking more of where they can trace their lineage back to some Earth country. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some pre Starfleet. You get to the point where you find out that can anybody guess where Dr. Crusher's family's from? The fiery redhead. Oh well, she's Irish, just like 90% of Americans come.
And her son that was wearing what looked like a potato sack.
And
This
he
episode.
had that was a great big
He's
sweater.
always wearing those sweaters, man.
I mean, but that one was brutal. It looked like a potato sack with some large hems in it. It's just
It was pretty rough.
I gotta say, when she comes on the bridge and he's just hiding behind on that turbo lift, peeking out. Oh wow! I just despised
Already,
man. That's
already, you hate
what
Wesley
are you
Crusher.
doing, man?
See, I think you've been poisoned already.
Oh.
You're prejudiced against Wesley
I
Crusher.
don't know. The one episode I remember with the game. Like it doesn't stand out to me that he was super annoying.
right.
But man, his
Well, he wasn't annoying
Shoot.
this time. I mean, he came.
He just sat there and watched.
Man.
He stood off the bridge because he wasn't supposed to be on it. You assumed that his mom was going to say something to the captain about it.
It was just such a passive aggressive type move. It's like, I'm
But
on the
really-
turbo lift.
but really, even-
I'm on the bridge.
I'm not touching
Hint,
you.
hint.
Even she looked a little bit perturbed when she was getting off the turbo lift, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because she got up to get a little hand motion that we've all seen, because we all have mothers that little, just stop
Just
it.
stay.
Stop it. I'll be
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And just,
He's definitely lacked a father, for sure.
Like I said, he's got a good episode coming that'll focus a little bit more on him. Not the next episode, but 2 episodes from now. He's got one he'll be some of the focus, and he'll get a good story. He's gonna come across as annoying. That's just the character. That's the way he's written right now.
Mhm.
He's this annoying little boy who's craving the attention of all these intelligent adults that he's smarter than at this point, and he's just looking for validation, and that's just the way the character's written. But he's got a good episode coming. Riker's got a good episode coming up next. The next one will be a good Riker-centered story.
The only saving grace that he has right now, Wesley, is Riker's affection for him.
Yeah. Well, either the affection for him or just the idea that Riker knows Picard doesn't like him on the bridge, so Riker likes him on the bridge.
See, I'm trying to stay positive.
Did you notice Picard and Crusher are talking, and as soon as she mentions Wesley, he just his face falls, his voice gets deeper, and it's like,
yeah.
I was still going with that. I hate kids.
Mm-hmm.
That characterization,
It won't go away.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, that's not going to go away.
It was a visible
You're gonna have to
change.
get used to that one.
It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's going to have to go. The holodeck made its first, I guess, real appearance as a turned off mode.
Yeah,
Right, with the lines.
It was a little bit different than normal. Normally, when they walk in, it's lines 100%, and now they walked in and it's a carpeted floor, so it's a little bit different than what it'll be in the future, but it's close to.
I now know where that episode of Community got Abed's imagination room.
Was it?
It's just black with yellow lines.
There you go.
Yeah,
all
it's a
around
holodeck.
it. So.
Yeah, and it. So, all right. So this Leegin Planet, they are. I couldn't tell if they were pre-warp. You know, the big thing with the Prime Directive is that for a pre-warp society, a society that hasn't, perfected warp-capable star travel, you're not allowed to interfere with their natural progression, either technological, religious, any type of interference before they make it to space and they do their first warp flight is against the rules. I know, Matt, you said you saw First Contact, the movie, and it wasn't until
they had the Vulcans had to sense the warp signature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was when they made that warp jump, that's when the Vulcans knew, okay, well, we can come and we can make First Contact. So obviously these people have that. Now we don't see any ships, we don't see anything on their planet even that makes it look like they're high tech. The only thing that they've got is they've got this transporter.
Yep.
And to me, the transporter seems like that would be harder to do than the warp speed, because you're taking apart atoms and recombining them in a different location.
If it was that same technology, because it seems like it wasn't the same as the transporter.
That's true.
So I don't know what, but yeah, it seems like that is.
It was a different sound effect and different color.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a completely different style of transporter.
Of any technology to pick a more primitive culture to have, that seemed
it was
quite the odd one.
Yeah.
That and the lightsabers.
Yeah.
Yes, the lightsabers, but they didn't really. Even the lightsabers, I couldn't tell. Was there a danger of hitting the lightsabers? Were they going to get hurt if they hit the lightsaber?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think
because when they first showed it, the one girl was in there practicing swinging it. That was a weird scene.
That was
none of that looked natural at all.
The whole flash dance thing.
Yeah, she looked like she was struggling with it.
Absolutely.
But the guy that was standing there watching it, he got something caught in one of the beams and it burst into flames.
I saw something burst into flames, but I thought he was like lighting a candle or something.
That's what
like
I
a
thought.
ceremonial
Yeah, no,
thing.
he got something caught in the beam, and then during the fight, they ended up locking arms around it, and she was trying to pull Yar into it, and Yar kicked her off.
Okay.
And yeah.
So the implication was this is going to cut your face if I can pull
The
you into
implication was this is a lightsaber.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
That's what I took from it. It was just,
and it stretched as far up as I guess you could see because it just went.
it just went. Man. I mean, it was. They had
forget that one bird flying overhead because
it's gone
dead
now.
bird.
But there was one like about maybe 18 inches off the floor.
Yeah, that
and
went
then
all
there
the way
were
around
and then there
it.
were four that shot straight up in the air for as far as you could see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
it was an odd, like I said, it was an odd game of tag. You know.
But yeah, I mean, for that, what we were talking about a minute ago, for that to be their first technology, I get it that every planet is going to come across their first technology, and they're all going to be different.
Right.
But that seems at least level 2 or 3.
You would think so.
It's like,
That's one you have to build up to.
What are the prerequisites
Yeah.
for
Right.
that
What
type
did
of technology?
It's like, so you can't warp. So you can't get anybody far enough away for this to matter. So why do you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, they've got to have warp. That's just the rule of the Prime Directive. So they've got it. But I mean, they didn't have any ships.
But then this brings up a question too. Because I was thinking about this with the whole Prime Directive thing when I was watching it. The Prime Directive is the one thing that rules everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
Unless a particular planet has a medicine that they need to cure a disease that is wiping them out planets at a time.
That's true. We haven't talked about the disease yet.
Would they be willing to break the Prime Directive to get that medicine? Which, the story of them actually getting that medicine is something else we probably need to cover too. Because, I mean, it was just like an all-out bloody battle to the death and all these barbs. Well, can we beam it aboard now? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
When did that happen? How did we flip that switch?
I don't know how when that agreement was actually made. I don't remember that at all.
But they... Yeah.
Well, at first he said, can we beam it aboard? He said, yeah, go ahead. And he said, okay, start sending down medical teams. If you're going to beam it aboard, what do you need the medical teams for?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
What? Okay. But yeah, the disease. So the Anchilles? Is that what
I can't even remember what it was called.
I can't remember what it's called.
Anchilles. Yeah, I don't know. Anchilles fever or plague or... All right, so they kept going back and forth between calling it a vaccine and an antidote. Those are two wildly different things.
Yes, they are.
One is the disease in actuality, just weaker.
Right,
The
right.
other is
Well,
not.
Yeah, one is given to you before you catch something to stop you from getting it. The other is given to you after you're poisoned by something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed to be more of an antidote as the episode went on.
Right.
Yeah.
It did because, I mean, you get to the one point where they're talking about a planet that has it, and they're estimating the casualties in the millions.
Yeah.
Those are people that I would only assume already have it.
You gotta guess that they're...
I mean, and because if you're looking at a planet that's going to lose its millions, plural, millions of population, you're no longer looking for the vaccine for them.
No, the vaccine's not gonna do them any
That's
good.
not going to do them any good. You're looking for a vaccine for the next planet
Right.
over there.
Right.
You know, you need an antidote for these people.
Yeah. And like Matt said, a vaccine would have to be that disease or that life form, kind of boiled down into something that you can give your body so that it recognizes it. So when you get the full blown version of it, your body can fight it.
Right.
And it seems like the best place to get that would be from one of these places that already has the disease.
You would think.
If you're going to a planet that's obviously never seen it or heard of the disease, then you're getting something to cure it after the fact.
And I have to admit, I was in my head asking a question when Dr. Crusher walked in and answered the question. It's like, well, you've got a little sample of the vaccine. We've seen from previous episodes and from everything we know about Star Trek, the original series. Replicate it.
Right.
You don't need to do anything with these people. Replicate it and go home.
Yeah.
Well, no, they can't. Every time they tried to replicate it, it became unstable.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
And
It's a good throwaway line.
it was a good throwaway line. And that's all it was. Probably to most people, it was a throwaway line.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it answered a question that I had. Why aren't we replicating this and warping out?
Yep.
Yeah.
And speaking of warping out, why did they leave at warp 3? They're flying to the planet where all these people are dying at 1/3 their full speed. All right, my car can go 120 miles an hour, and now my daughter's dying. And I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive 40 miles an hour to the hospital. I don't think that's the way I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to go full speed to the hospital.
You almost forgot there was any urgency at all
Absolutely.
by the end of the episode because it just got so methodical.
It got a little bogged down in itself.
Yeah, it lost the urgency, the time factor it tried to set up at the beginning, for sure.
I mean, I guess they took care of it in a day. That's what it seemed like, How long? Maybe not. How long was they said that So they kidnapped Yar, and Picard tried to talk to him immediately. Nobody was answering. He said it's been a day, and we've not heard anything yet, and he's starting to get nervous. And at that point, they contact him. He beams down with Troy. I mean, 2-3 days. I don't know what the actual full timeline of the episode even is.
Yeah.
It felt like 2 days.
Yeah.
Because, the whole thing where they said that they've been waiting for a day. Mm-hmm. But then they go down and he asks for Yar back politely. And he says, no, we're going to have a feast.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it was 3 days.
Yeah, because that would have been
because
that
what would have been the time between the feast and the fight?
Right. It seemed like there was at least a full day between.
Yeah, could have been. Maybe it was 3 days.
The feast and the fight, yeah.
Like I said, so I guess 3 days isn't bad. It's still, but like you said, you lose that sense of we need this now.
The main conflict is here on the planet now. Right. It's not like it's like they don't necessarily care. It's in the background now.
Right.
Because they don't even talk. Like you said, it came out of nowhere that they were getting the vaccine because of that, or the antidote because of the fight. Because the last 20 minutes has been just about the fight.
When it was all over and he brought it up, I was kind of like, oh, yeah. That's why we're here. We're not here for Yar. Right. We're here for the medicine.
We're focusing on this story of these 4 or 5 people right here. There's millions of people dying on another planet. But no, tell me more about these 3 days on this planet. That's what. And then they go and they warp out, and you get used to it as the series goes on. There's always a closing captain's log. Mm-hmm. And usually it's, I'm going to tie up all of these little sub-stories in a nice little bow. And you didn't get that on this one. You don't have any idea what happened to the people who are dying of the plague. And we'll likely never hear from them again. Because like we talked about before, this is an episodic series. This isn't a serial.
Right, it's in the serial.
So we're likely never to hear about these people who are dying of this plague again. For all we know, this wiped out planet after planet after planet.
But they made it eventually with a vaccine.
They made it eventually at
warp
1/3. And they made it there at warp 3. And here we are. We're here to save your lives. Where were you? You should have been here days ago. Well, we took our time. We didn't want to overtax our engines.
Well, see,
our security officers.
Let me tell you what happened to Lieutenant Yar. Let's talk about Lieutenant Yar for a minute.
Difficult courtship, and then she called it off at the last minute.
She's seen some things. It's been a whole big deal.
Yeah. And according to the end of the episode, too, she's still dealing with the feelings that she had for him. Because as we know from another throwaway line, every woman loves him.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like,
how can you not?
Really? Okay. This guy got it.
Yeah.
But at the end, Yar did seem a little conflicted.
She did.
About it.
Like she was
really, very slow to say no.
She really had to consider.
It would complicate things because I'm a Starfleet officer. That's the reason you're.
That's the only
one reason.
That's the only thing stopping her, Matt.
That's the only thing that was stopping her because she made a vow to Starfleet.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the attraction would just be too much.
No. Absolutely, she would just give him everything that she owns. He would rule her lands. That's just the
which
way
include what, her quarters on the ship?
No idea.
Which I think isn't that
lots of yellow clothes.
When I watched it, lots of yellow clothes.
Lots of yellow clothes, and that one dress and lots of hair gel.
Oh yeah,
the hair gel, whatever.
The hair,
from episode 2.
Yeah,
I thought that was more of a bucket of water.
Yeah, I think that's why Picard went ahead with it, right? Because they explained that the women own the land, and he would get every the land, and that's when he's like, oh. Yeah, well, she doesn't own anything.
She's not. Yeah, he's not going to get
anything from.
Yeah,
I don't know what he thought. Like I said, the only thing I can think of that he thought he was getting out of it was the fact that his current wife would be dead.
So he didn't currently own all.
Right. He didn't currently own all of it.
But if she died,
he would. That was the implication I took, and then he would have another wife in Yar who had nothing.
Right, had no claim on the land.
Had no claim on anything, so she would have no power over him at all.
Right.
And he had already stated at that point in the episode that women didn't mean anything to him.
Right.
And he wanted Yar at first because he thought that she could actually kill his wife, who's apparently been training her whole life.
Apparently.
So.
Nobody's
the line something about they have a way of knowing how to fight or something. She has some weird line.
Even though we haven't used it in
200 years. 200 years was the number.
Yeah.
We still know, even though we still know how to kill. We know.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird.
That was and like you all said, the fight was that was a poorly choreographed fight. I've seen some bad fights.
It was in Yar. You could describe her. She is somewhat athletic from some of the things that she's done.
Okay.
But she's a very stiff actor.
Right.
And then you have this other girl who, God love her, she just didn't have any athletic ability whatsoever. I mean, because Yar put a foot in her chest and extended her leg to kick her off and get separation. And this girl went straight down to the floor. She didn't go backwards at all. She just fell straight down. Like, okay.
Well, I mean, now to be fair, they're fighting inside of a box no bigger than this table.
That's true.
That
is true.
Now,
that's true.
And and it's stepped, so there's platforms, and it's just
But there's monkey bars.
Such a tight
there's
fighting
monkey bars.
area.
Come on.
Very I just don't know what they were thinking when they said, "What are we going to do for this showdown?" We're going to do this,
right?
And I will say, it could have been much worse. Like, I was surprised that they did build up enough to where you actually felt the danger of it.
You did.
Like, there were Yar might,
There were moments where either one of them
she could get hit. Yeah.
It's that I will give it that.
And if they're bringing weapons in, and they bring in 4 boxes, then they say select your size. And the size that you have to have is not in the biggest box.
Mm-hmm.
If it were me, I'm walking out with one on each hand.
It's true.
When they were walking out with that, they were walking with it. It just looks so goofy.
It's awkward. It was, and then they're just swinging it like a club, and it's
the weapons like weird. The weapons like that cover the whole forearm like that, and you put it on like a glove. Those are based in human history. We've had weapons like that, but that one was just.
Including the Power Glove.
I mean, right?
Yes.
The Nintendo Power Glove being the
best one.
The
pinnacle
most
of our weapons.
Of all gauntlets designed by man.
The most powerful.
Absolutely.
Can we do that movie next?
You're gonna do the Wizard?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
I probably watched that movie 20 times when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
I love that. California. But anyway.
Quick, somebody digress. We're going to go crazy with the Wizard.
Yeah, no kidding.
Super Mario Brothers 3!
He knew how to get to the warp zone. He knew how to get behind the little white tile.
And that's a game
never seen it before.
And let's be honest, that's a game that Power Glove would have been virtually useless.
Yes.
Oh, are there any games where that Power Glove wasn't virtually
would have
useless?
been useful
Punch Out?
on the racing game that they
don't
actually
know.
played it with? I mean,
No.
It's
no one.
Not without the bar that came out with the Wii.
Yeah.
No.
Then you could put that glove on and it really wouldn't matter, but
Right.
you could do the motions. Yeah, I don't know. Whole thing was
we
weird.
had a Power Glove. We got one for Christmas and took it back almost immediately. It was absolutely the most useless piece of Nintendo equipment. Sitting next to Rob the Robot, the Power Glove is still the most useless piece of.
I don't know, because technically, if it worked, if you got one of the ones that would work when you plugged it in, you could use the buttons to control what was going on.
You could use one hand
to control
instead of 2 hands.
Absolutely.
You could.
No.
Whereas
Wait a
Rob the
minute.
Robot sat over there while you played a different game.
No, you say you could use one hand while the other controller used 2, but technically your second hand is wearing the glove. You can't do anything else with that hand.
Right.
And now you're using
you
you're
can
still
only
using
use
2
one.
hands.
Oh, yeah.
We did not digress.
We did not. We didn't digress. I
We
warned
went
you.
full on down that rabbit
I
hole, didn't we?
tried to call the alarm, and we just jumped down the rabbit hole, man. It was.
I think it's related enough.
To be fair, I was already in the hole when you called the alarm, man.
I sort of did it on purpose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fred Savage, love Fred Savage. Young Fred Savage was great.
Young Fred Savage was great.
he was. I watched The
That's
Wonder
right.
Years just last year.
Did you?
Yeah.
For the first time?
Not for the first time.
Oh man, I
I'd
thought,
seen-
man, we need to. Where's
Most
that
of the episodes,
podcast?
We're
most
gonna
of
have
the
to stop
episodes
this one and
for
do
the
that
first
one.
time though. I really hadn't watched a lot of it. I
I
remember
don't
watching
think
the series finale.
I don't think I
last
sat there
episodes,
and watched it, like once a week when it came out, but I've seen a lot of the episodes in syndication.
But he was good.
He was
really
good. He was really good.
That show, like the first episodes 1 and 3 of that show, were like some of the fantastic television.
Fantastic.
They
were.
I was blown away.
Yep.
But anyway,
quick, digress. What are we doing?
Wonder Years, thumbs up.
Yep. He was even good in Princess Bride.
Is Fred Savage ever a guest star in Star Trek? I'm trying to save it.
No, Fred Savage
okay.
doesn't ever
We're
show
not going to say that.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to even think. Is anybody from the Wonder Years? Oh, yes, his sister from the Wonder Years.
Oh yeah,
she shows up
a lot.
She shows up in Star Trek. There you go.
The only other thing I remember her in was some
Diabo.
Yeah. I remember her also in that weird Disney movie about the soccer team. She was the coach. The same trope that the Mighty Ducks had and all this other stuff, except with soccer.
I don't know. Yeah,
no
we just hit a wall on that one. Back
Yeah.
to Star Trek.
Yeah. But Fred Savage, if he's listening, he should come on our podcast.
And talk about Star Trek.
Talk about Star Trek.
That he has no relation to.
We would love to
whatsoever.
have you, Fred.
Absolutely.
Mr. Savage.
Mr.
Savage.
Anyway.
Wow.
So, are we going to rate this thing?
Yeah. I did want to say one thing about
sure.
the because they keep going on about, they talk about the customs of honor about on the back, and Picard's speech is talking about, we used to have these strutting systems of honor or something like that, and the implication is that now we don't. But they obviously, Starfleet and their society obviously has some code of honor, and it's not whether you have a code of honor, it's which code of honor you have.
Right. And you're talking about the minimizing honor.
Yeah.
They do that at the end of the episode. Because usually it's the good guy who gets to say, I still have my honor.
Right.
Music plays, credits roll.
Right.
Good guy lost a battle, but he's still the good guy. Well, at the end of this episode, the main bad guy goes, I still have my honor. And somebody pops off. What good is that?
Yeah. What good does that do you?
You don't have anything else. You're my new husband's slave. Step to the side, please. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that did more than minimize honor. That kicked it to the curb.
It really did. So from the beginning of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, he purposely did things like minimize religion. He minimized conflict. One of the hardest things for the writers to do with Star Trek, the rule was no internal conflict. No conflict between crewmates. You know, everybody should get along. Everybody who's within Starfleet, they should all get along. There should be no reason for there to be. It's utopia, and that's that. It's like we've talked about before. It's a very glass half full version of the future.
How does he explain the naked now? Then that's
right.
the second episode.
The only he says basically the only way that you have conflict within Starfleet itself is from an external force, whether it's a disease, a magical omnipotent being, pulling strings, something from outside influences somebody on the inside, and the utopia society cleans that up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And from that, I think you also lose that sense of honor. There's when it's kind of like The Incredibles, right? When everybody's super, nobody is. Well, in utopia, everybody's 100% honorable. So if everybody's 100% honorable, what need do you have for a system of honor? At that point, everybody's already full up on honor. We're all full up here. Go sell honor somewhere else. Yeah. We don't need it anymore. So I kind of feel like even then, with these people, they go to the Leegins, and they've got this code of honor. And like Mike said, you get to the end of it, and he's like, I've still got my honor. And they're like, you got nothing, dude. You are out. They almost look at the honor.
And it was his wife that said it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was somebody from his planet that
Absolutely.
should share the same honor code. Says your honor doesn't mean anything.
Right. But it's almost like they look down on them even for professing that honor means something. It's like honor. You live by this code of honor, and you broke your code of honor. Tell me how your code of honor is any better than us. At one point, Picard says he makes something similar to that. He says you profess to live by this code of honor, and here you are acting in what we would consider to be an act of war. You've broken your own code the first chance you get after we meet you. And he's completely, whether or not it's the writing or decree from Roddenberry, they just completely kick the whole idea of honor in the junk and turn around and run away. Man, it was.
Well, we don't. Yeah, and we're not even today. We're not strictly like an honor shame society necessarily, but there are things that people do that we look up to encourage those type of things, whether it's not officially honor.
Right.
Or, although nowadays we do have, I take back what I said, we do have very much a shame society. It's coming back, except we don't have any honor to couple it with, really.
Right.
So it's like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
So we're in an interesting place.
Yeah. Like I said, it's to me this was a solid episode. This is the turning point. This is the point where Star Trek starts feeling like Star Trek to me again. So I was all around happy with it. And it's been a good talk too. I'm still surprised that I didn't catch. Sorry, nobody here can see me unless Matt sneaks this video out onto the internet.
Don't look at the camera.
Don't look at the camera, Dennis.
It's right over there. Don't look at the camera.
Don't look at the camera, Dennis. Nobody can actually see me when I do this, but I look at Mike, and Mike jumps back because I'm going to make a statement about him. The whole idea that Picard was, right. What do you think about that, Riker? What do you think? Are you gonna tell her no now, Riker? And I can't believe I watched this episode 3 times and I missed it.
Oh yeah, I mean it was to me it was a very pronounced thing. Now you might watch it back and say, Mike, you're crazy, which I'm not saying you're wrong, but to me it really stood out.
Yeah, let's rate it. What'd you do out of 7? 0 out of 7.
Oh, this is on a scale of 7?
Sure.
Okay.
Unless you want to make up a new scale right now off the top of your head.
No. Of these first 3, this is more of what I expected Next Generation to be. But at the same time, I don't know if it was my favorite episode. I'll probably go with a 5.
Okay.
I mean, that's above average, but I mean, I don't know that it's, like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily my favorite. I really enjoyed the one thing that was lacking in it to me, which it had to stop at some point, but this was the first episode where we didn't get a call back to the original series.
True.
And yeah, no bones, no rehash plot,
no redoing of the plot, no mention of Kirk or anything. And I don't know, maybe it's because of how old I am. I kind of enjoy those little nostalgic tidbits when they put them in, and I think that would be just enough to put probably the last one a little bit above this one of all of them. I mean, it was, I don't know. What do you think, Dennis?
I don't remember what I rated everything else. I remember rating the last one very low. The last one was, to me, the bottom of the barrel of Star Trek.
We've had 1, 3.
Yeah.
I can't remember it all, but they were all below.
This is
4.
Yeah. And this one to me, this is still below. This is still below a 4. This one is not, top half of what Star Trek can do. But to me, this is the turning point. This is we're heading into some legitimately good stories. The next one will be another cheesy one. The one after that, I mean, they're all going to have their campiness to them. They're all, but you're at this point, they've kind of settled into. We're not going to get too much more campy. We're not going to get too much less campy. We've hit our stride on.
This is our camp.
This is our camp for at least the first season, and we're happy in this camp zone. I'd say maybe a 4, maybe a 3.5. I said the acting is getting much better. The characters, the relationships, the interaction between characters is getting much stronger. All in all, I enjoyed it. Like you said, I'd say since I enjoyed it, it's above 50%. So let's go 4.
Yeah, that's actually what I would rate it. I'd put it right below Encounter at Farpoint, I think. Which I think I rated that one 4.5.
Okay.
So.
See, I think Encounter at Farpoint and this one I both said 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna have to write these down, otherwise we're gonna be.
No,
we're gonna get our numbers so
we
wrong.
don't have to write them down because they're recorded forever on the interweb. Anytime you want, you can go back and
We
listen.
need to write them down so that when Matt looks up and says, "What do you rate this episode?" we don't all three look at each other like, "Uh-oh."
It's about to get worse. What would you name this episode?
Man.
Oh.
Man.
What would be the more appropriate name?
So
It's called Code of Honor.
Code of Honor.
Encounter at Leegin.
Code of Honor.
To hold with what I said at the beginning.
What about that plague? I mean, we get to the end of the episode and we don't know what happened to all these. I mean, there's millions of people dying. But you know what? She got her a new husband. Her husband got him a new manservant. And we're okay with that. God bless them. But what about that plague?
And Yar is safe.
And Yar is safe.
Yep.
Yeah. Nope. I'm going to say, that instead of Code of Honor, this is Star Trek Next Generation, Episode 3. What about that plague?
Yeah. Fair enough. I have to go back to the professional tag. Was maybe more amateur tag.
No.
Yeah. The worst game of professional tag.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's
see,
pretty rough.
the plague doesn't matter because this episode is all about Yar.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is. They put the disease on hold for Yar.
Man, that's going to kill me.
Specifically saying, let's be patient.
I got to know more about this plague. All right.
There were a lot of good lines in this episode, though.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good individual moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still...
I like the big X-Men logo that the people beam to on the floor.
I didn't notice.
You didn't notice that
No.
either? Oh, come on, Dennis. When they said that they preferred to use their own transport technology, and they go to what looks like just a warehouse, and there's a big like sticker on the floor. It's a circle with an X in it. It looks like the X-Men logo. It's like, they're going to lock onto that sticker? What are they doing?
Didn't notice that.
That's the secret of their technology.
Stickers. The stickers.
Special stickers. It was just recently in the news, the new Star Trek Discovery, and we made a point in the first episode about the shorts
Mm-hmm.
and the uniform. That one guy in the shorts uniform walking in the
Oh,
background
he wasn't
a
wearing
couple times.
shorts. He was wearing a skirt.
Either way.
Yeah, but it's officially called a scant.
A scant.
And they're supposed to be bringing him back for Star Trek Discovery.
Oh,
A
yeah.
scant.
That sounds like a not nice name to call a girl who sleeps around a little bit and call her a scant.
A scant.
I think that's
Maybe one level
maybe
below.
that's the way I would go with it.
What is
do you
wrong
call-
with you?
I don't know. It's late.
Or something you call a guy wearing a scant.
A scant. Get out of here, you scant.
It is its own
Yeah.
insult.
There
So,
you go.
yeah.
I mean, I can see skort. I've heard skort.
Yeah.
Scant. The man skort?
Maybe. I
That-
don't know.
That's called a
I don't
kilt.
know why that
kilt?
name.
No, a kilt doesn't have anything between your legs. A skort has the
A skirt is a pair of
is the
shorts with a wrap
with the
around
wrap
it. Yeah.
around it. Yeah. It's a scant.
The
All right.
I'm
Starfleet
sorry.
scant uniforms of Star Trek.
I'm sorry. I didn't get a look up the skirt to see if
See if
there's
there's
anything around
anything
his
there?
legs or not.
That's true. It could be a kilt. He could be Scottish.
Maybe it is a skirt. I don't know. I can't tell on the guys.
You know-
can't flip him upside down and see what's going on.
No,
their hips-
no.
Yeah, their hips don't go out wide enough to actually make anything flare at the bottom of
Gotcha.
it. So I don't know. They look like shorts.
Can we go back to the power glove? I'm feeling
Yes.
uncomfortable.
Quick, digress.
You were talking about earlier with Gene Roddenberry's idea that all of conflict comes from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it does take place inside, that's due to an outside force.
Right.
that's probably what I like the most about the reboot movies. Kirk is the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
He is 100% the one causing the issues for everything on that particular ship that he's on, the Enterprise that he's on in those movies.
Yeah.
And it's because he's a loose cannon, and he's portrayed very much as that.
Right.
And Spock is doing the best he can to keep that cannon under control, and it causes problem after problem after problem for the entire crew.
Well, in Star Trek Beyond, I think they got back. That was more along the lines of traditional Trek, right? Because Kirk wasn't necessarily the loose. It was like more of a.
He was more settled. Well,
it was more of an extended episode of.
Right, but to be fair, in that third one, they didn't put him in a situation where loose cannon and something abnormal is what's going to win the day.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the first couple of movies, with the situation that they were dealing with, the character of Kirk had to go off script to do something that went against Federation guidelines or whatever to be able to pull it off.
Yeah,
so he was the only
Prime
one.
Directive in the beginning of the second movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, the credits get done rolling. Boom, here comes the ship. Oh, okay, we're doing this now. But yeah, I mean, it was in those first couple of movies, he was the one causing all the problems, and that was very different than even what they've set up in the third movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Until next time.